Lead. It was a limited strike, a shot across the bow, designed to send a stern message. I'm talking, of course, about Russian President Vladimir Putin's scathing open letter to the American people. Today, Press Secretary Jay Carney at the White House had the awkward task of addressing the Russian hate mail.
It is clear that President Putin has invested his credibility in transferring Assad's chemical weapons to international control and ultimately destroying them.
The question, of course, since when has Vladimir Putin cared about his credibility? Here to discuss the politics of Putin, host of NPR's Left, Right, and Center, Matt Miller, Heritage Foundation fellow Rebecca Heinrichs, and Max Fisher from The Washington Post. Max, does Putin care about his credibility?
No. I mean, he's not running for the Senate here. What he's trying to do is he's trying to put his thumb on the domestic American debate over whether to strike Syria. And the thing that you have to understand about this is everything that's happening right now between the U.S. and Russia is a negotiation over Syria. The CIA arming the rebels, Putin's op-ed. It's all about this chess match between these two great powers over the future of this country. The U.S. wants to see the chemical weapons pulled out. Russia wants the status quo. Everything they're doing is about trying to achieve that position.
And taking public positions, for instance, suddenly it was in the Washington Post that the arms were getting to the rebels. One of the rebel leaders, General Idris, if he appears on NPR, says, though, that I don't know anything about that. Then he appears on with Christiana Amanpour a few hours later and says, I can't talk about that. Somebody obviously said, shh.
Right. Well,
not so much with the talking about the arms.
Well, I think it's telling that, President Obama didn't arm the rebels for a long time because he didn't want to. And now that he's negotiating with the Russians, all of a sudden he's arming them. I mean, in negotiations, this is called a gimme. It's something that Obama probably actually wants to give up. But this way he has a little bit stronger of a position, and he can go to the Syrians and the Russians and say, okay, this crazy, unreasonable thing that you're demanding, you give it up and we'll stop arming the rebels because we didn't want to do that anyway.
And Rebecca, we heard the White House today, and a senior White House official told me last night, this is now on Putin. He has buy-in to this plan. They're trying to stake Putin's credibility on this, not so much President Obama's. Do you think that can work?
Well, yeah, I mean, you think about who Vladimir Putin is, let's be reminded of what the Russian government has been doing the last several years. I mean, in the op-ed, he accused the Obama administration of using aggression and force too quickly. I mean, this administration, I mean, he has threatened to use nuclear force preemptively over a dozen times in the past 7-8 years. This is a country that doesn't abide by their own treaty obligations with the United States. So it's pretty audacious for Vladimir Putin to be lecturing the American people about our president. 80% of the American people already oppose the military strikes, and for good reason, because our president doesn't have a good military objective or strategy that he's articulated to the American people. And so we're already against it, so we really don't need lectures from Vladimir Putin.
And Matt, you say that Putin could actually, theoretically, get a nod from the Nobel community should this work out.
Well, look, I mean, Putin is totally in control of this situation. If you read that op-ed, it's actually, if Obama were still running for re-election in 2016, Putin would be outflanking him to his left as kind of the peacenik candidate against the warmonger Obama. And you could argue that Putin, if he pulls off this Syrian thing, will have done more to deserve a peace prize than Obama did when he got the first one just by taking office.
Max, one of my writers thinks that you laid out the president's objectives even clearer than the president has. Let me just read this quote. What Obama wants, quote, is for, what Obama wants is for Assad to step down voluntarily as part of a negotiated peace deal with the rebels that would also leave elements of Assad's government intact. That's something that I didn't hear the president say as clearly during his speech the other night.
Right, and I think the reason that he's not talking about that is that it's actually totally separate from what he's trying to do with the chemical weapons, right? If he takes chemical weapons out, Assad's still there. That does nothing to solve the war. And this is the needle that's been really tough for him to thread, right? Because in talking about let's get rid of these chemical weapons because Assad is a monster, Assad is killing lots of kids, well, it turns out that fixing that problem is actually not on the table with getting rid of chemical weapons. It's actually this much more esoteric academic case about upholding international norms, which is really important, but is also really tough to sell to people.
Is that one of the communications problems the president's having, this idea of international norms? It has been compared to the buildup of the war in Iraq, and obviously they're completely separate, but one of the things that the Bush administration was making the case for was directly, this is how it's going to affect you. Don't let a mushroom cloud be the smoking gun. Obviously, I don't want to get into a whole debate about the Iraq evidence and how false it was and incorrect it was, but that at least was a way to say to the American people, I shouldn't say at least, that was conveying to the American people, this is how it affects you. I think a lot of people are confused by this argument.
People are confused by the argument. I mean, we waited for the president, bated breath, watching him address the American people, make his argument as to why these strikes were necessary. And the speech was muddled and it was confusing and it wasn't clear. And I think that's because in the president's own mind, it's muddled and confusing and isn't really clear about what these military objectives are meant to achieve. And now that we have the curveball from Vladimir Putin, you know, making this suggestion that we can come together as an international community and remove these chemical weapons, and this is a great out for President Obama. I'm very, very skeptical that this can work out, but this is the out that he needed. He doesn't have the support from Congress or the American people or the international community.
But it's not really an out, ultimately. That's the thing. We're in the situation where it's diplomacy by accident. You've got the red line was kind of an accidental remark that Obama made a year ago that kind of put us into this situation.
Right.
Kerry's offhand remark the other day, which I think by all accounts was meant as a kind of a throwaway line, ends up being the vehicle that brings us to this new set of negotiations. And I don't know anyone serious who thinks that you can dismantle chemical weapons in the middle of a civil war, and even then you've still got Assad there having killed 100,000 people. So I don't know what we're doing.
Maybe I just feel a little bit more charitable, but I think that Obama has been pretty consistent about saying we don't want people to use chemical weapons. And this is a great opportunity for him to do that. And if he can actually see it through, who cares if it happened and Putin looks good in the process?
All right, Rebecca, Matt.